Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I just want to take a second to thank you all for joining us on the traditional territory of the Songhees and Esquimalt, and to think about the ancestral people whose material we get the privilege to study. I'm going to be talking to you today about incised siltstones in the RBCM Archaeology collection. So briefly, as an overview, I'm going to talk to you about the collection itself, and I will talk to you about the methods that we're using to inspect these objects. We'll go into a little bit of preliminary results, and then I'll follow up with some next steps. So this is a multi-year project, and this is the first year of that project. And this is a bit more navel-gazy. It's looking at our own collection, and it's not yet at the community level. The purpose of this study is to understand what these objects on the left are. These are incised siltstones, and they might be quite hard to make out for some of you, probably for most of you, unless you have super special vision. This is a little-known collection of objects, not only in our collection, but across BC. And the reason this came up is because a couple of years ago, at Archaeological Field School in Comox territory, there was an archaeological field school in Comox territory, and as they were excavating, someone noticed that there were all these sort of naturally shaped siltstones that had little scratches on them, and someone looked a bit closer and they realized that those scratches were actually depictions of something, but of what? They called them the pentlatch pebbles, and I had the privilege of hearing one of the researchers talk about them, and he said, yeah, we don't really know about these. These are a brand new collection of artifacts. We don't know where they come from. There aren't very many in the province, and having had the privilege of working here with Grant Keddy, I knew that that was not in fact true. There were some in our collection. And the reason that they didn't know about them is because we've never published anything on them. And that's symptomatic of the archaeological community at large. They're not aware of them on the same scale because they haven't been taught about them, because so few of them had been found to date and none of them had been properly analyzed. So then, coming back to this collection, I have long wanted to use a technique called RTI, or Reflectance Transformation Imaging, to explore objects in our collection. And I'll get in a little bit more to what RTI is, but it's a really excellent tool that seems complicated at first, but is actually quite straightforward. And it's extremely powerful for interpreting things that are hard to see by the naked eye. So let's get into it. Reflectance transformation imaging is a computational photographic method that captures a subject's surface shape and color and enables the interactive relighting of the subject from any direction. Now, what does that actually mean to you? It's a process of examining the surface of an object, and the interactive relighting is captured by the method on the top left. So we have an object placed on a stable surface and a camera positioned above it. And then we take a series of 24 or more photos. And each of the photos has a light source in a different position. So that's what the grid is on the floor, and the volunteer that I have there is moving the light source for each photo. So you get 24 or more unique photos with a different light source. And then you use a nice open source software to compile them together, which is a little bit fussy, but eventually straightforward. And that's what you see on the bottom right. So this is a little video. Is it going to let me play it? Come on, come on. Not available. Oh, that's a shame. Well, hopefully this will be available tomorrow. So it's kind of underwhelming now, but that video, that video was going to show you the interactive tool. So once all of the images are combined, then using the green sphere, you can interactively move your mouse around, and it will highlight different aspects of the object. It also has the capability to desaturate and to change the color levels so that these incisions, which, you know, are just the shallowest little things, really start to pop out. So you're going to see bright, clear images. In the past, archaeologists may have used archaeological illustrators to understand what these images are, but having done some archaeological illustration, I can tell you if I was going to illustrate this object, it would take over 10 hours for one object. And we have 134 of them in our collection, so that represents a lot of time that is saved by using this method. Now, I should say that the RTI capture process is a little bit time-consuming, but there are methods of constructing photo lighting arrays that will actually speed this up. So this isn't the best image. I was hoping you'd be able to see that video, but in the top left, we have an example of one of the incised siltstones in our collection. As I say, we have 134 incised siltstones here, and they come from 5 sites. So when the excavations in Comox occurred, we actually had a few from that area. We have some from Denman Island, some from Maplebank and Esquimalt. And some of them were excavated, and some of them were recovered by people digging in their own gardens. So we had quite a sizable collection that all came from a husband and wife who just had been digging around, and they noticed them and they collected them and brought them in. But because of that, we don't know a lot about the context from which they come. And the excavation that took place a few summers ago and previous excavations in that area have suggested that there's no distinct feature from which these objects come. It's not like you can look over there and say, oh, they're all in that pit over there, or they're all 200 years old, or they're all 500 years old. We don't know that. What we do know is that they seem to be dispersed through the site chronologically and spatially. So we're not quite sure what they are or what their function is. But we know they're around. And the purpose of this study at this point is to highlight the possibility of finding them so that archaeologists can better identify them in the field and we can increase the recovery rates of this. This is extremely important because, as I say, these siltstones are quite a natural shape. They range quite distinctly, but to look at them as a trained archaeologist, if you just picked them up and they were covered in a little skiff of mud, you'd look at them and go, yeah, it's natural, whatever. I'm sure I've thrown them away in my experience. But you really need to take a close look. You need to make sure that they're clean. You can't brush them with a brush, otherwise these things will disappear, because as I say, it's very soft stone. So what are the preliminary results from what we've looked at? Well, we have several categories that we think they loosely fit into. The most popular is the parted hair and braids, and this was also mentioned by Comox Nation members. The picture on the bottom left is of an Ahatasak girl, and she's dressed sort of in this garb for puberty ritual. And if you look at the top left image, what you'll notice, and see how steady my hand is, so we've got parted hair here at the top, braids down the side, long dangly earrings, a lot of necklaces, and what looks like a woven garment at the bottom. Do you all see that? Let's try that again. So here's her parted hair at the top, parted hair up there. Then we've got the braids that come down. They've got little dangly ends on them. Braids. And then we've got these long earrings, like here, right here, and here. And then there's some necklaces or beaded things in strands there, up the center. And then what looks like a woven garment down here at the bottom. Some of the other ideas that have been discussed are things like basketry and textiles, feathers. Some of them are a little more abstract, and it's possible that they resemble fish weirs. And then there are a few zoomorphic or animal figures. And then there's, of course, a couple of them that just have little geometric designs on them that aren't distinct in any way. Possibly they're practice stones, we don't know. And one or two we have appear to be ceramic, and ceramics are not a feature of Northwest Coast archaeology, but there are known incised ceramics from Japan, so this is a very intriguing possibility, something for further research. But the next steps are where I'm getting really excited. So we will be now turning outward to the community, and we will be discussing with them the creation of categories that are meaningful to them, because it's not enough for us in this department just to say, I think it's feathers, therefore it's feathers. You know, that has no meaning or bearing on the cultural application of these objects. So we will be discussing with the communities what they think is important and what they believe these stones to be, and we'll work together to explore them further. We're also planning to go out into the community and teach the method of RTI capture, because it's a really powerful tool that community members could use themselves. As I said, it's open source software. You can do it with even the dinkiest little camera, so it's really, really powerful tool. And then in the future, we're hoping to speak to geologists and get sort of more information about the source of the raw material, whether these things are being traded from elsewhere or whether they're using local raw material. But anyway, this is just the beginning. I hope that some of you are here tomorrow and you can see the video in action. If not, I really encourage you to Google RTI on the web, and you will see some pretty spectacular applications of it. And for internal purposes, this is a technique that will be useful by others, including paleontology and archives. You can start seeing just the tiniest little surface features like watermarks and things that are invisible to the naked eye. So thank you very much.